Now, the second item on our list of the common mistakes in basic writing is inconsistency in tenses and in parallel structure. You might have heard of the quotation, consistency is the key, and that is correct even with grammar. Now, let's go first with tenses. Of course, there are three basic tenses: the past tense, present tense, and the future tense. And I think that you have a good deal of knowledge when to use this, but if you don't have, let me remind you. Past tense is used for actions that happened in the past. Present tense is used for actions that are currently happening. And future tense is used for actions that will be happening in the future. Some of you still get very confused with the tenses and when to use it. So what I highly advise for you to be reminded what tense to use is to bear in mind what timeline the action happened. Did it happen in the past? Is it currently happening? Or are you referring to something that will happen in the future? So that's basically it. Now, I know tenses could be very complicated, but that's for another lesson. As I've said, I'm not an English teacher and I'll not dwell much on the technicalities, but that is basically it. All right? So, why should you be very cautious about your use of tenses? Because just like anything else with grammar, it could change the entire meaning of your sentence. Your thought could be potentially misinterpreted, or your entire sentence might not make sense at all if you don't use the right tenses. All right? Let's go to the inconsistency in parallel structure. For example, in our example, for example, you have a sentence: when I grow up, I want to become a teacher, travel around the world, and a manager of my business. So let's break down this example into its three components, or the three things that we have enumerated. So, first one, we have enumerated to become a teacher. So the verb there is to become. And then the second one is travel around the world. Travel there serves as a verb as well. And the third one is a manager of my business, wherein manager serves as a noun. So as you can observe, we have used two verbs and one noun. And we need to revise to make the three parallel with each other. Next, if we can look at it in the perspective that when I grow up, I want to become a teacher. So a teacher functions as a noun, travel around the world functions as a verb, and a manager functions as a noun as well. So in this perspective, we are looking at two nouns and one verb, and we need to revise so that the three would be parallel with each other. Just a quick clarification about this example. I am not saying that this is grammatically incorrect. I am just introducing you to parallel structure because it is one way that we can improve our sentences in terms of its structure, or in terms of how it would sound like. So how can you make them similar? So you need to revise. For example, you can say, when I grow up, I want to become a teacher, a traveler, and a manager of my business. Or you can say, when I grow up, I want to teach, to travel around the world, and to manage my business. Now that sounds better, right? So that's how you make parallel structure. Another example, if we have the sentence, I like listening to music, to paint, and acting. So the three things that we have enumerated: listening to music, to paint, and acting. And as you can observe, these things that we have enumerated don't have similar structure. So we can improve that by saying, I like listening to music, painting, and acting, or I like to listen to music, to paint, and to act. So please be advised, that parallel structure is sometimes an artistic choice, but if you really look at some sentences, it would really be better if you can have similar structures on the items that you are mentioning, just so it would sound better. Sometimes with written outputs, it is also a factor that you try to listen as to how your sentences sound. Reading is not just a visual experience, it could also sometimes be a, an auditory experience. For example, it's evident in poetry. If you want to learn poetry, it's both words and sound. So bear that in mind.